this a bit. So here we go. So yeah, welcome everybody to our session today, which will have two main topics, namely the homework for chapter 6. I think that will take us about, I would say probably 30 minutes because there was quite a bit in there. And I was thinking the other 30 minutes we could spend on pronouns, all of them, which means there's a ton of pronouns. Now, the good news is we've already covered two major sections in earlier sessions, so I'll be focusing today on the ones that are quote-unquote new. But before we go there, let's start with our homework. And what I would propose there is, why don't we just do it like, hang on, 3, 3, 2. Why don't we just do 3, 3, 2? Like if everybody wanted to take, oops, they're the solutions. If everybody wanted to take like 3 at a time, that would be great.
I haven't done the homework, so I'm afraid I'll just have to listen.
Okay, that's fine. Who want to take a shot at the first 3? Who wants to take a shot at the first 3? From English to Egyptian.
Yeah, I can try. Yeah.
All right.
So first one, another day. Yeah, another day. Ki heru.
That is correct. Sorry. So ki, I guess how would be it, or heru, depending on how you want to approximate it phonetically. I'll do the hieroglyphs. I have them already ready on the next page. Let's save some time. I'll show you in a moment how it's spelled. Okay. Next one.
Cat heated. Cat heated, not I.
Yeah, I think like this. Cat heated. That's good. And other people is an interesting one.
So we would do chunks of 3, right? So I'll do this one, right?
Yeah, let's do this one as well. Yeah.
Okay. Cat femich. Cat femich. So I mean, as we discussed over email, I consider this one as feminine singular. TLA, I think, considers feminine singular, but I've seen also instances where it's considered a plural. So I guess it's, debatable.
Yeah, it's a good question. I found it interesting you brought that up in your email, whether it should be cat remich or wait, I think this is whatever this is. So I found one sentence where it is ket hu remich. So basically really just a simple plural. Others of people. Technically ki ket kehu are nouns. So it's the direct genitive kind of construction. I found this interesting. I haven't seen that one. Have you actually seen that one, or was it more like a grammatical analogy from remich being a singular sometimes?
No, I haven't seen it. I did look for it. I mean, I did, but the ones I found a couple in Ramesses online where remich people was considered to be plural, but I saw other sources where remich was considered to be feminine singular. So I just I used indefinitive accordingly.
Very cool.
How do you think you said if it was and other people? So let's say you were an Israelite and you were referring to, say, the Hittites, and you were Egyptian.
I was just thinking something similar, and I have to give you the answer. I don't know, but I'm happy to look for it. I'm going to take a note of that. Like another people as a nation, basically, and not other men, basically.
Yes. Maybe there's different. Yeah.
Have to look it up, honestly. It's a really good question. I'll take a look.
It could be something like people from another land.
Right. I'll look it up. I'm not sure, honestly. It's a good question, though, because people in English can be a lot of different things, right? And can be the plural of human beings, and it can be a nation. With that being said, so yeah, well, thanks. Perfect. Who wants the next 3?
I can try them. Oh, lost you.
Did I hear a buying signal there, Erin?
Yes, I can try, although I'm not prepared. Okay, the other one, I think this is just key on its own, right?
Yeah, or you can put the article.
Like the other.
Paki.
Oh, paki, of course.
Interesting. Most homework submissions I got had pakiwa, like really the other one, like in English.
Mm.
But Egyptian doesn't do that. English does it, but German doesn't, French doesn't, and Egyptian doesn't either. It's just paki. All these I took from original sources, by the way. So it's not just stuff that I made up, but they're taken from original text because I wouldn't feel comfortable to show you guys anything and say that's what it is because I know I don't. So, okay, cool. Everybody, what do you make out of that?
Ramechneb.
That's right. That's right. And if that has any kind of ending or not, who knows? I would just do Ramechneb like you did. Okay. Message. I gave the homework. I did not put it on the screen, unfortunately.
Is it wuha?
Could. I was going for uput, like message, mission. I think.
What is it again?
Uput.
Couldn't hear you. Oh, uput. Okay. Uput neb.
Yeah, that's right. Right, something like this. Cool. Well done. So we've covered key, we've covered neb.
Isn't it only in negative sentences?
Because of the any.
Yeah.
That's funny because that's more like an English thing. Basically, they don't distinguish. For them, it's neb, whether in positive or negative sentences. In English, when you go to negative sentences, it has to be any, right? Like, I didn't give you any money. You can't say I didn't give you all money. It just doesn't work that way in English. But you can also say any message that you may bring to me. So in English, any can be negative or like, what is the opposite? Positive, affirmative? I don't know. No matter which one, it's neb in Egyptian. Or later in Coptic.
Can I ask a silly question?
No, go.
Because I can't remember it. Do we always have the neb after? So you couldn't say neb remech.
You couldn't, because that would actually be the Lord of the people. There is another word which I didn't introduce, which is neb, which is the Lord, and nebet, the lady. So if you have it before something else, I was thinking after the last session that I should have pointed that out. That is the noun, the Lord. It's not the adjective. The adjective is always after. The reason why ki, ket, and the plural can come or does come before the noun is it's not an adjective. It's actually another noun. It's literally the other or the others, the others of the other of day, the other of I, the other of people, and that's why it can come before. Or that's why it does come before, I should say. So that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up because the last time I thought, ooh, you missed saying that. Yeah. Position matters in this case. Cool. 2 more to go.
I could try.
Awesome. Let's go for it.
So all is going to be plural. So kut who.
Oh, we're all though, not other.
Oh, so all. Okay, nub. The na pe.
What's that? Ta?
A ta, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, from English you would think so. And that was pretty much I think in everybody's but one homework submission, it was with a na there. The interesting thing is this varies by language. In English, we can actually say all countries. You can say all the countries, you can say all countries. You can use the article or not. In Egyptian, you don't need it, for sure. It would just be ta'unib. And maybe in Middle Egyptian, it would have had a plural ending or something, but now it doesn't. So it would just be all countries like this, ta'unib. It really depends on the language, no? Let's see. Todos los países, all the countries. I think you need an article here. In German, alle Länder, alle die Länder would be wrong. No, in German, you can't use the articles. It really goes by language. Some languages make it obligatory. Some you can't have it at all. English allows both. All the countries, all countries. Slight difference there in usage, but yeah. So that's cool. And then we have one more. That one is a bit more tricky because it's a full sentence.
Well, I can try. Okay, so gum
That's right.
is find. So gummy.
For me. Oh, you mean like this?
Yeah.
And that would be find me in the sense of like find me because I'm lost or something. But again, something annoying in English. Seriously, English grammar is the biggest obstacle here. Find me is actually find for me, like it's a dative. In Latin, you would say mihi. So it's really for me or to me.
Oh, so ank. No, you can have to give me a clue.
The dative preposition, do you remember what that one is?
No, I don't.
So in Coptic, it would be nai for me. And in Egyptian, you just spell it like this. N-J.
Ni. Yeah, gum ni. Then some. Hen. Was that Coptic?
Good guess. That is some in Coptic for the plural article, right? Like some breads, basically. Yes, that's right. But we had a word last time which was some in the sense of like a little bit of land, a little bit of beer.
Key. Was it key?
Almost. Nikit.
Nikit. And then bread. I've also forgotten. Anyone remember?
I actually gave it here. Normally it's te, but in this case, the original sentence had aku. And so I'm just going to run with it. I would have expected an N there, like neked en aku, but wasn't there. It really just said neked aku. Was one of the most simpler sentences I could find that actually, excuse me, had naked in there. So yeah, just wanted to remind everybody of this word. All right, well done. Let's take a quick look at the hieroglyphic version. And let me make this full screen again. So, Kijao or Kijero, depending on how you want to spell it. Ket iret with a T. I had Ketku remet for other people in the sense of like other people that came with me or something, not a nation. Paki, the one, note that it often has a little A1 man here to basically indicate, yeah, it is a noun. Everybody, remich nib, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Uput nib, any message. So yeah, no negation in there. All countries. Somebody had Chasut nib, or Chasut Nibu, Chasset being a foreign country, Ta being just land, also referring to the land of Egypt. In this case, the original sentence had Tau, lands, so Tau Nib or Tau Nibu. You don't need an article here because from the Egyptian perspective, this is already a determiner. This already says like, I mean, since it's all lands, there's not a land that is not included, so you don't need an article anymore. And finally, Gimni or Gimnai or something like this, Neked Oik or Aku. And there we are. Well done. I'm loving it. You guys play along with my English to Egyptian escapades. I think it's better if you, at least when you try to translate from your own language into Egyptian, even though it's always going to be imperfect because we don't have a native to teach us, it gets you to think about the language differently. Like, how does this really work? So I think it's always a good exercise, even though it can be a bit painful. The other direction is easier. So we had From the Tale of Two Brothers. So the situation here was that there had been a fight between the two brothers, so much so that the elder one actually wants to kill the younger one. Jealousy is involved. So the younger one then prays to Epre, to the sun god, and this episode describes what happens next. I would say if somebody just wants to take the whole thing, that would be perfect. I know. Jonathan, Alvaro, since you guys have done it already.
Yeah, I can do it if you want.
Okay, let's go for it.
So it's aha, para her sedgem speru fneb.
That's
Is
right.
it a number of neb, or is it
Say that again. I'm sorry.
a wa after neb, or is it just a daughter?
Oh, you mean this year? That's my funky way
Yeah.
of putting a comma there, which nobody else does. I'm just doing it because I find it easier to read when you have commas and periods and something. But that is not in the original text. The original text goes straight on to you.
Okay. And then the re upon hearing all his ribs.
Not rib, all his prayers.
Prayers. Okay.
Prayers. You can see that from the determinative. It's the spirit which has like
okay.
a two man. So that one is prayer.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
It does. No Adam and Eve involved in this one. So no ribs. This word lives on as sop something in Coptic. It's still around. It hasn't completely died out for prayer. I forgot. It's something like sop or sop, or I forgot, but yeah. So yeah, and then Ebre heard, because there's an acha here in the beginning that is a past tense, heard all his prayers. Okay, and did what?
Next line. Io pare her ardit Hebrew va en enem more? Or do you want me to stop there?
Eryud, between, still around in Coptic as well. Eute or something like this. I'm sorry, I'd have to look it up, but something like that. Like, yeah.
Okay. And it's Eryud again, and Pife, sen
Correct.
And the ray upon giving or becoming one of the great water between him, his elder brother.
And it's again, and what?
Between him, his older brother or bigger brother.
Correct. I think maybe a little bit better between him and his older brother. This basically that you have it once here with him and then once with the other person is basically like between him and the other. So like you repeat it. So I don't know. No, in English we wouldn't put a comma here. It's just the way it is. And yeah, quick comment on the tense here. So pare cherdit would of course be re is giving, first present, an adverbial sentence, or like you said, is upon giving literally, but it just basically means he's giving or he gave. But then when you put the circumstantial converter, the eo in front of it, it becomes a narrative past. So ideally translated as a past in English. And Ebre gave Heperu, so gave to be, in other words, he made. I think, what did you have, Alvaro? Something like bring about or something? I mean, that's the literal meaning of the Heper. He made to be, basically. He made to be a large water. Go ahead.
Emerged.
Emerged. Yeah, you had emerged. That was pretty elegant as well.
Yeah, literally, one large water emerged between him and his elder brother. Yeah.
Right. So this is an infinitive. He made emerge. I think that's an infinitive. Is it an infinitive?
Infinitive after infinitive?
Or is it a causative kind of thingy? Like this could be causative with a subjunctive. Second.
It's possible. Stative, no? Stative?
Not stative. That's like the other option would be subjunctive, like made that it emerged, made that it emerged, namely a large body of water. I'll have to park this one. Actually, now the more I think about it, I think this is actually infinitive plus a subjunctive, but we haven't covered that yet. It was in a few like homework questions where I think lost it. I think that's what that is, but let's park that for a later day. Okay, but you had the meaning, right, Jonathan? Let's go on.
EOF me Messau.
That's right.
Is it 3 crocodiles or is it plural crocodiles?
I think it's plural because if it were 3, I mean, could it be 3 crocodiles? Technically, it could. Technically, it could. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. It just seems more logical to me that it's crocodiles, period.
Okay. So, and he to be full as a crocodile or crocodiles.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think this one here is probably a stative. So I should have said full. So you have mich mesejo, and it was full of crocodiles, I think. If it were and he filled it with crocodiles, there should be like some kind of object here.
An
which-
object, yeah.
So I think basically the F is referring back to the water, the Mao A, which basically is the big water, the great water. UF named
Okay.
water was full with crocodiles. And we didn't cover the stative yet. It's what becomes the qualitative later in Coptic, basically indicating that something's already happened. And you can just slide it in the same place where you would put an infinitive in the first present. And often you can't tell which is which. You just have to know from like context, from meaning, or from the overall grammar, like not having an object here that tells you that must be a stative. Okay, well done. Let's continue. 2 more.
Yeah. Iupa. Sorry?
I said you're doing great. Yupa, yeah, and then?
Iupa wa im senu her heperu. Heperu wa en reyet.
Riet, yeah. I'm not sure if that thing is
Riet.
pronounced here.
And one in and the one I there.
Yeah. But then you have the sen here. What's the sen doing?
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Okay. So your hypothesis was that the im was like an adverb there and the one there. Okay. Another option, what else could im be if it's not the adverb? And technically we haven't covered this yet, so if you say
I
I
don't
don't know, that's
remember.
perfectly fine. It's also
Can there be a preposition in the midst of them or something like that?
yes,
Or
sir,
sen is
exactly.
the object of the preposition.
That's exactly what it is. It's the pronominal form of the preposition em. It gets like an extra reed leaf, just like a Middle Egyptian. So imasen or something is among them or from them. So wa imasen, and I'm putting an a in there just because I think that was probably in the middle. Of course, it's not written, but something like that. So e pa wa imasen, ger heperu, ger wa en reed, like you said. Any guess what that could be?
So the one among them became on this side.
Yeah, almost. Ger wa en reed. What's wa?
One.
So upon one side. And this is again a first present. So and with the converter, it becomes a narrative past. So, and one of them was upon one side, iu paki ger keti.
And the other upon the other.
Exactly, perfect. I just love that example because it shows you exactly how to use those like in so one of them among one side, the other one on the other, and that's you can use them just the way you would use them in English. It's maybe not too surprising, but it's good to see it in action. So yeah, well done.
That's funny, but that's because it's first it's male and then it's feminine.
Yeah,
that's
good
like that.
point. Oh, okay, great point. I didn't notice that.
Sort of
but,
mating, or is it?
but no, that's okay. So the side it originally has a T. It's a female, a feminine noun, I should say, not a female noun. Sorry, it's a feminine noun, and the wa doesn't take thinking. The wa doesn't take a feminine ending anymore, I think.
Yeah, the distinction is not meaningful anymore, right? Between masculine and feminine.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit funky because there's the N in between. If it were warit, I would have said absolutely the article doesn't take the feminine ever. Now he writes wa in the rit. I'm not sure if he's trying to be classical because this is a tale, so it has a higher level of more literary forms, also with the acha here and so on. It's trying to look more like classical literature, so maybe that's why he puts the N in there. Maybe they were still saying it. I don't know. But basically, the noun itself is feminine. So the other side, because key ket does distinguish between feminine and masculine nouns, this one definitely needs one. So the only thing we could argue about is why does this one not have a T? And I think it's basically like Alvaro said, the distinction is not meaningful anymore at this point in time for the numeral one. Although it is tricky when it comes to like in Coptic, you still have male and female number ones. I mean, masculine and feminine number one. So I'm still struggling a little bit with when it is what. Like, when do you still have a feminine distinction? When don't you? So it's a good question you're bringing up. So I can tell you why this one's feminine. I can't 100% tell you why this doesn't have a T. But I think it's basically, yeah, or let's put it this way, why this doesn't have a T and in Coptic you suddenly have one again. That's a big question mark in my mind that I can't completely answer. I hope that helps a bit. Very cool. So we have the two brothers separated, which gives the younger brother an opportunity to make his case and basically explain what happened and why he's not to be faulted at all, what he's going to do next. I'm sure we're going to get there at some point in time. It's a great tale, and it's one where we have the beginning and the end, which unfortunately often is not the case. For example, the Doomed Prince is a great story, but unfortunately we're missing the ending. In the beginning, you have like, he's either going to die from the crocodile, the snake, or a dog. And of course, he meets a crocodile, a snake, and a dog in the story. But then it suddenly breaks off like halfway through. It's absolutely tantalizing. You want to know how it ends, and it doesn't. In the case of the Tale of the Two Brothers, you have it from beginning to the end, which is cool. For the next one, we are in the opposite situation. We don't have the beginning, but luckily we have the end. The end, no spoilers here. It's called the capture of Joppa, or in Joppa, or in modern Israel, it would be Jaffa. So the city is still around. So yeah, the city gets captured, but how it gets captured, that's the interesting part. So basically what has happened is that the Egyptian general, Jehuti, pretending to essentially submit to the ruler of Jaffa, he has prepared all sorts of sacks or baskets, who knows, some kind of carrying device, with men inside, with several hundred soldiers on the inside, and weapons and sandals and ropes and basically all the equipment. The whole thing is sealed, and basically what happens next is the instructions given to the other soldiers outside of the city, what they're supposed to do next. I think, Alvaro, you had that one, so if you wanted to take that one, maybe?
Yeah, sure, I can try. So first line would be you two had dit wawu, plural, nebet, nefer, shersen, demet, z 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dio or something, right? Or Dio and Che. Yeah.
Yes, I'm lazy. I didn't check that. I just put the numeral. Yeah.
Okay.
Demet or damage?
Damage, although at this point in time, they probably did pronounce it like a D, I would guess. It was probably like something like damage. But originally, it's a Ch at the end. Okay, what'd you make out of it?
Yeah. So here I translated like a Middle Egyptian, so with the two as an impersonal pronoun. So one had every good soldier under them or in them. I guess it's the jars, right? Total 500 men.
Right. Interesting thing, ger can have three meanings that I'm aware of. One is to be under. That's the fundamental meaning. It can mean to have, like, for example, gergimit, to have a wife.
Yeah.
And it can also mean to carry.
Yeah.
So in this case, because there are obviously some soldiers in the baskets and they somehow have to get into the city, I was thinking it probably means had carried them, and the total of them,
Yeah.
like inside and outside, is 500.
That makes most sense. Yeah.
That's my interpretation, but yeah, up for debate. Okay, cool. Let's go on.
Okay. So you two had Jed Nesen, when ten had hak re or pa dimi. Yeah. So one spoke to them. Once you enter to the town, then it's the next line, right?
Very good. No comment. Perfect.
Shall I carry on?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you 10 had when nai 10 hirihu.
That's right.
So the continuous it's the second bit of the last sentence. So, and you will liberate your companions.
That's right. I suspect there's an N missing here. So I suspect it's like when en naiten ereo, which is, by the way, ereo in Coptic, the like companion or other or whatever. You will open for your companions, I think is what it means. Otherwise, the open is a little bit awkward. Like, you're not opening the companions, you're opening the baskets which have your companions inside. So I suspect there's like a missing N in there, which happens a lot. That when you have like two N's or two M's in succession, they only write the second one, quote unquote, or they only write one. But yeah, translation was perfect. So you will open for your companions, or you will set them free more literally.
I use liberate, I think it's okay. It's what I used.
I think that's good. Okay.
So the fourth one would be metu 10, and I think there is a typo there. Maybe I think the T is missing. I checked with Gardner, and that the 10 is missing. Well, the scribe wrote N, but Gardner thinks it's a 10. Make sense?
Honestly, I've seen both. I've seen that interpretation that the T is missing, but then it's missing in both lines, which is kind of odd. But it could be. Or it could be that we're switching person here, and we will. I mean, it could be, but it could also be just a typo, quote unquote, like you said.
Yeah, and Gardner mentions he reckons it's a typo from the scribe. It's what he said. Anyway,
who are we to argue with Sir Alan Gardner?
Who am I? Metu 10 mehe hem remech neb niti em pa dimi. So you shall seize in all people that are in the town.
That's right. I correct the original text. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I struggle a bit with the M after the C's, after mehe, because it looks a little bit, in English, a little bit strange, right? You shall seize in people, or in all the people, right?
It's a bit odd. In Coptic, it would be normal because you need an object pronoun, an object marker. But in Late Egyptian, that's not very common. It does happen sometimes. I wonder if that's what it is. But yeah, it's a good point. I would have, if I had to make the sentence, I would have said mech remech neb, and I wouldn't have said mech em remech neb. Originally, he actually spells it with the mech, which has like the Y1 glyph underneath the book roll, which would mean to fill. And they fill with all people which are in the city. That doesn't make any sense. So that was the only thing I actually corrected in this text, quote unquote. I replaced it by the Nechtarm, which basically would make the whole thing to seize, which is a valid verb. But it leaves the question, what's the M doing there? I'm not completely sure either. I think it could be an early form of the object marker, maybe. Not sure. Okay, let's do the last one.
Right. So metu 10, D2, mecha, herha. Something like literally, you shall put rope on them immediately. So something like you shall tie them immediately.
That's right. And you should tie them immediately. Literally, you should put them in ropes immediately. The here belongs to the ch, so it's not like ra in the sense of like day or something. It's just, for whatever reason, pulled over to the second part, even though there's a determinative stroke in between. And you pointed it out correctly. It's du or d2. There's definitely a w here, so put them. It's an infinitive, because this here is a conjunctive, and you or we shall put them in ropes immediately. Okay, great job. So yeah, the reason I had picked this one is just because it had several naps in there, at least two. I think that was the main reason. Maybe also because it's a great story. Because of course you can imagine what happens here. It's like an Alibaba kind of tale, or like the Trojan horse, just basically 200 years before the Trojan horse, that you put the soldiers into baskets, pretend you're bringing tribute into the city, and of course inside is all the attack gear. And as soon as nobody's watching, the soldiers come out and take the city. If this really happens, who knows? We do know that the army was messing in the Levant at the time, and there are war events, and there is a General Jehuti, but whether this particular episode happened like that, who knows? But it makes for a good story. All right, any questions before we go to today's stuff? No? Okay, great. I mean, hey, we can get through all this stuff now with what we've covered so far. I think that's pretty cool, actually. All right.
Just one question. The first present, right? This adverbial sentence. So every time it has a "you" at the beginning, then you say if it is present, if it is a dependent, independent clause, if you put the "you" on top and becomes dependent, then automatically becomes a past. Is that it? Is that a rule, or?
I would say not necessarily, because the EU, what it does is it's more like a connecting form, like you said. So while and it becomes the circumstantial in Coptic, which is basically used a lot just to say what's happening while something else is happening. So primarily it's like coordinating. It's just saying like this also happened while the other thing happened. So in that direction, it's not automatically past. However, when you want to tell a story of things that happened in the past, you use this form. So you start with some kind of acha en, when in, or some other like literary past tense introduction for the line. And then all the other pieces get glued on with EU plus first present. And in that case, it has to be translated as a past tense in English, even though the form is grammatically, grammatically, it's ultimately tenseless. It's just telling you that this was happening while the other thing was happening, if that makes some sense. So it's more a requirement of the English language that we make it into a past tense than the Egyptian language. I hope that explains it.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the circumstantial in Coptic goes wild. You use it for all sorts of things. You know, this EU becomes, essentially that's how you can make a lot of adjectives in Coptic, by just making like a little EU sentence while doing something. A man who did blah, blah, blah. I don't know, a man who works as a lawyer. So that becomes then like a lawyer type man. I don't know, things like that.
And do you pronounce that in Coptic, the "you"?
It's pronounced A, simply like an epsilon A.
Okay.
But it lives on. It's like one of the most common particles. Yeah, I could go into another rabbit hole, but let me not do that because we're short on time. So I'll try to get through as much of the other stuff as we can, and we may go a little bit into the next session. So Neveu chapter 7 is all about pronouns. And the scary thing about Egyptian is it has a ton of them. And Late Egyptian doesn't make it better. It actually adds some extra ones that weren't there in Middle Egyptian. It becomes a tad more manageable by the time Coptic rolls around. But in between, there's like a whole zoo of pronouns. And I wanted to guide you guys through that, what they all do, more than going over the individual forms, because you can check those out on your own, which I would highly recommend because you'll need them. But it's more interesting in this session to discuss what they do. So we have suffix pronouns, which we already covered in session 6. That's basically like your E, K, or ch for the second female or feminine, etc. And you have the subject, the so-called proclitic pronouns, which I introduced in session number 7 of like the preparatory sessions. So the ones that become, well, this will become T in Coptic, your basic adverbial sentence pronoun, subject pronoun. So T, took, to, su, said, etc. I'll go in a moment over what they do, but really briefly. I want to focus on the 4 here at the bottom. There's the dependent pronoun, which is like your basic object, direct object pronoun. Of course, Late Egyptian makes its own object pronoun, which competes with the other one. And then you have the so-called independent pronouns, which become like anok, entok, ento, entof, entos in Coptic, which you use for nominal sentences. Like, I don't know, I'm an Egyptian, for example. That would be, you can't use any of the other pronouns. You have to use this one. And then there's a special old possessive pronoun, which has some overlap with this one. If we get there today, I'll briefly mention what that does too. So it looks like a lot at first glance, but honestly, once you go through them one by one, they're not that scary. So let's do that. Suffix pronoun. I'm going to talk quickly through this one because we've covered this more than once. So just a quick recap. And if you want to see the details, check out session 6 in the syllabus. Basically, this has a ton of functions. You can use it as a possessive. For example, if his I, his, or together for most words, it will be with pai tainai, paif it, or paif yat, actually, paif yat, his father, so his father. So it's common, just like you do it in, I think you do it in Hebrew, at least classical. I think you do it in Arabic. That's a common feature. You can use it also with prepositions. So for example, nef for him, nf. So preposition followed by the suffix pronoun. More relevant for us today, it's the object of the infinitive. So if you have satim, the infinitive to hear him would be satmef, literally his hearing. But it really means to hear him. If the infinitive gets a T, all the triliterals with a weak last consonants, like for example, gimme, they do that. So it becomes gimmet, and when you stick the suffix pronoun on there, it becomes gimtuf. And to show that this is pronounced, they write TW, just to say, hey, this T is really still there, because final T falls off normally, right? So it's gimme, but when you put a suffix pronoun, his finding, or to find him, or to find it, it basically becomes gimtef, which is spelled gimtuf. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to point out. You use it for the infinitive. Also, there are many other verb forms, not infinitives, which look formally the same, but were pronounced differently. Like, for example, the subjunctive, or some call it prospective. May he hear, something like setmaf. So it would have been pronounced different from our satmef up here, but the spelling looks exactly the same. And that means may he hear. So in this case, it's the subject. Or the past tense looks the same, consonant-wise, probably pronounced something like setmuf, or at least poised things so, from whom I'm taking the vowels here. So setmaf, setmuf, different meaning. In both cases, though, it's the subject, not the object anymore. And then the one that we just discussed, like, for example, if karisatim, and he hears, or and he heard, you can also stick it after all sorts of converters and other tense indicators. Or, for example, conjunctive, emtuf satyam, and he hears, and so on. Oh, and he will hear more properly. First future, etc. So the suffix pronoun can be the object after infinitive, or it can be the subject after a whole bunch of other verb forms. That's a lot, but we covered it before, so I think we're going to be okay. I'm not going to go in detail through this. You'll remember it's E, K, ch for the female second, which later becomes just a vowel, F and S. and plural en, ten, and sen, or in Late Egyptian more and more u instead of the old classical sen. That's it for the suffix pronouns. So far, so good? Okay. One I didn't cover, the tu, the indefinite, that Alvaro pointed out a moment ago, that basically means one. So like one does. We have a special form for that, which replaces the pattern. Yes.
Yes, I had a question because it said in the niveau impersonal. Was it impersonal plural or impersonal singular? So this was on page 19 of niveau. Went through singular, went through plural. I got that impersonal be like one says or one said, but I didn't quite know how it fitted in with the singular plural thing.
Honestly, it doesn't really make, semantically, it doesn't make a difference, right? Like when you say one says or they say, it's essentially the same thing. Like somebody unspecified did it. In Coptic, you use se, plural. So they say, right? Like they say, they did, which means it was said, it was done. I take the two to be a singular, but that's actually a really interesting question because I have no idea how you'd figure that out. How the Egyptians themselves perceived it. But yeah, normally.
And related to that, this thing that looks like a theta with a diagonal line through it, what is that?
Which one?
For impersonal. Well, in niveau page 19, when they're talking about this impersonal, it's like a circle with a diagonal line through it.
Now I have to find them. Hang on.
So, so there's a dot two for the impersonal.
Hang on. I don't have it open, but we will momentarily.
Sorry about this, everybody. Just I keep seeing this symbol, and I think, what does it mean?
It just means nothing. It's just empty.
Oh,
so is that?
Yeah, I was going to say empty set.
So, and is this an English thing or is it an Egyptian thing?
Page 19, you said, right? Let's take a look at it.
Yes.
For anybody who doesn't have the book in front of them, like me.
And for future people like me.
Oh, this one here.
Yes.
I didn't even notice that. I think he's just trying to indicate that either that it doesn't have like a feminine form or a plural form. I think. Is that it?
It's omitted. Yeah, it's omitted.
It just means omitted. It's like the linguistic zero sign, which basically indicates like when you don't have an ending or something.
And this is an English sign, or is this an Egyptian sign?
Gotcha. No, that's English or modern, 100%. Got it. It's just like a zero ending. You have that when something's not. Oh, I guess what he's trying to say is, sorry, I misunderstood that you could have like an unmarked, or if there is no object, you could, if there is no suffix pronoun, you could also read that as impersonal. I think that's what he's trying to say, but would need to figure out what exactly he means. That's a good question. Like, for example, here, the first singular sometimes is not marked at all, which maybe tells you something about the pronunciation. So what he's basically, although that's weird too, I don't know. Basically what he's trying to say here, sometimes you don't write the first person of the dependent pronoun, where I wanted to get next. And then you just indicate that with a zero, which basically means nothing there. Why he puts that here for impersonal, I don't know. It would indicate that sometimes the absence of a suffix pronoun could mean impersonal, but that's kind of weird. I don't know. Can we park that one? I'm not completely sure, but I'm hoping at least it explains what that sign means. All right. Let me do the other two real quick. Not the other two, the other one, the other recap. The proclitic pronoun, that was basically the one you use for adverbial sentences. So ti, tuk, tu, su, se, tun, tutin, set. How is that one used? Well, you can have an adverb after it. Like, for example, ti im, I'm there. Ti di, I'm here. Or ti hirsatem, I am upon listening, or I hear, which then becomes ti sotem in Coptic. And then basically you do the same thing for the other persons. And again, there's also a tu, like for one hears. I just love that tu, but yeah. Tu hirsatem, one hears. Literally, yeah, one is upon hearing. often abbreviated like this in hieratic. So yeah, those we've already covered. Not too exciting because we've talked about them before. So that's just a quick recap. Now the question becomes, what do you use if you wanted to say, well, the direct object? If it is like, I am upon hearing him, you have to use the suffix pronoun. But what for the other tenses, where you, for example, say, Sachmak, may you hear him. You can't make it Sachmakef because you've already put a suffix pronoun after the Sacham. So you have to use something else. And what you use then is the so-called dependent pronoun. So that one, the most common use that has is for the direct object. So for example, if I wanted to say, may you hear him, Sachmak su, or Sachmak su. This is the dependent pronoun, the direct object. This is nothing new. I think this is how it works in Middle Egyptian already, but it's basically something that you have to know. The quote-unquote accusative has this form. You can also use it for a few other things. You can use it for adjectival sentences. The formula there is nafirisu, he is good. So good, he literally. Adjectives are not all that common in late Egyptian anymore, but you see some examples. Like for example, bintu Erismin is one that I found. Tu is the second person. So bintu is you are bad, and not just you're bad, but actually you're bad. Er is semin, you're worse than a goose. Er is the or a is the preposition used for the comparative. So that puts the whole thing here into like from it becomes from bad, it becomes worse. But the key grammatical feature here is basically the tu, which is the second person singular of the dependent pronoun. Why worse than a goose? I don't know. If you've seen geese before, they're pretty annoying. They're loud and they leave stuff all over the place. I'd have to look up the text to know why exactly. The third usage of the dependent pronoun is you can also use it for possessive constructions, like it is yours. Su being it, Ntok being yours. We'll get there in a moment, or rather probably in 2 weeks. So that's another way how you can use the dependent pronoun for certain possessive constructions. Important, basically the distinction, it really depends on the verb form when you talk about objects, which one you use. T herisechmaf, I upon hearing him, the hearing or the hear is an infinitive, so it takes the the suffix pronoun, so T satmif. And if you have any other verb form than that, you use the dependent pronoun. So satmai se, or setmai se, may I hear him? In this case, you use the su and not the f, because you already filled the slot here with the suffix pronoun. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Let me show you the forms of this pronoun. It's we for the first person, not tui, like the subject pronoun, but just we. It's tu and ti for the male and female second. And it's su and set for the third person. Probably all of them pronounced se, actually. I doubt the T was still pronounced, but traditionally they keep the traditional spellings. In the plural, it's en, teuten, and san or set. Presumably also pronounced se, just like later in Coptic. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's the dependent pronoun. Let me see.
Can you give me an example of a sentence with a dependent pronoun in it, just in English?
So the most common thing you're going to see is where in English you would put an accusative object, direct object, like I give it. The it becomes the dependent pronoun. And in English, it's not that easy to see because we don't distinguish between nominative and accusative. It's like all become one, essentially, which is annoying. In almost any other European language I can think of, it's easier to explain this one. But
well, how about explain it in French? Because my problem is I'm no good at English grammar, so I don't really know what a dependent pronoun is.
French is the other one. Let me think in French. Wait. trying to think of a good example where you could actually see it. And of course, I
Don't worry,
can't.
I'll look at the grammar book afterwards.
Okay, I mean, this doesn't exist in English or in any European language. We would use, it's an Egyptian thing that takes the place of where we would put an accusative pronoun in English or in European languages. But the dependent pronoun is an entirely Egyptian thing. It's called dependent because it can stand at the beginning of a sentence. It needs something else before it. It's not like, for example, in the adverbial sentence where you say I am upon hearing, that I can be at the beginning of the sentence. Or if you want to say I am an Egyptian, the pronoun you use for that, the Anuk type of pronoun, that can also stand at the beginning of the sentence, can even stand like pretty much by itself. We'll get there next time. This one always needs something to sort of carry it. It needs something that comes before it. I think that's why it's called the dependent pronoun. But we don't really have it.
I am a Berliner.
That one is an independent pronoun.
Okay. Right. Okay. Don't worry. I'm hopeless on this.
No worries. Let's close here for today, just because I think I'm already making the Sumerians wait. Yeah, we have like a couple of slides more to cover next time. Maybe we'll do it like finishing up the pronouns and do some extra homework until then. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
All right,
Sounds
guys.
good.
All right. Well, thanks so much as always. And see you in 2 weeks, or see you for Sumerian, or see you for Horus and Seth in the meantime. Have a great 4th of July, if that is your holiday on this weekend. And
Thanks, really.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.